When deputies entered Gene Hackman's Santa Fe home, the first clues pointed in every direction. An open door, scattered pills, 2 bodies in separate rooms, and 1 dog dead in a crate. Yet there was no intruder, no deadly gas leak, and no single event that killed them all. The truth was quieter and far more painful. To understand it, investigators had to rebuild the final days of Hackman, his wife Betsy Arakawa, and the home that had hidden their suffering. On the afternoon of February 26, 2025, maintenance and security workers arrived outside the couple's Santa Fe home. The house stood among the quiet hills, away from the noise of Hollywood. They tried to get someone's attention. No one answered. Something did not feel right. The workers contacted emergency services, and deputies entered the property. What they discovered was difficult to understand. Gene Hackman was found on the floor near the mudroom. He appeared to have fallen suddenly. His wife, Betsy Arakawa, was nowhere near him. She was found inside a bathroom in another part of the large house. Near Betsy was an open medicine bottle. Several pills had been scattered across a counter. One of the couple's dogs stayed close to her body. Inside a nearby closet, investigators found another dog, Zinna, dead inside a crate. 2 other dogs were still alive. The strange details seemed to point towards several possible stories at once. The front door had been left unsecured. The couple had been found far apart. Their bodies showed that they had been there for days, yet nobody had known. There was no note explaining what happened. There was no clear cause connecting the deaths. Even the surviving dogs made the scene harder to understand. If something inside the house had killed everyone, why had 2 animals survived? The first images created a mystery, but they did not provide an answer. Investigators now had to consider an intruder, an accidental poisoning, a gas leak, or separate medical emergencies. If you value stories that follow the evidence carefully instead of turning tragedy into rumor, leave a like. Cases like this deserve patience and respect. The home looked calm from the outside. Inside, however, 3 lives had ended in different places and possibly at different times. Then investigators began testing the most obvious theories. One by one, those theories fell apart. The first theory was the one investigators could not afford to ignore. Had someone entered the house? Deputies searched the rooms for signs of violence. They examined the unsecured door and looked for anything that seemed disturbed. Yet there was no broken lock. No sign of forced entry. The home had not been searched or robbed. Valuable artwork remained on the walls and shelves. Cash was still inside. Nothing suggested that an intruder had moved through the house. Then attention turned to the air. 2 people and 1 dog had died under the same roof. Carbon monoxide could cause confusion, weakness, and death without giving any warning. Officers opened doors and windows while emergency teams tested the property. But the results did not support that theory. There was no deadly carbon monoxide inside the home. The gas company found a very small leak near a stove burner, but it was nowhere close to a lethal level. The house itself had not poisoned the couple. That left the pills near Betsy. An open orange bottle stood on the bathroom counter. Medication was scattered beside it. In the first hours, it looked like one of the strongest clues in the entire house. It was not. The pills were used to treat a thyroid condition. Medical testing later showed that Betsy had taken them correctly. They had not caused her death. Tests also found no evidence that alcohol, illegal drugs, or a shared poison had killed the couple. Even their physical injuries offered no clear answer. Hackman appeared to have fallen, but investigators found no sign that another person had attacked him. Betsy also showed no evidence of outside violence. The case was becoming stranger with every result. There was no intruder, no fatal gas leak, no overdose, no violent attack, and the surviving dogs made a single deadly event even less likely. Investigators were no longer looking at one disaster. They were looking at separate emergencies that had unfolded inside the same home, hidden from everyone outside it. To understand which emergency came first, they needed to know when Jean and Betsy had last been alive. The rooms could not provide that answer, but Betsy's phone and computer could. Betsy's computer opened a window into the final days before the house went silent. Her searches began with symptoms that could have seemed ordinary. Between February 8th and February 12th, she looked for information about COVID-19, flu-like illness, dizziness, and nosebleeds. She also searched for ways to improve breathing. Nothing on the screen clearly pointed to a deadly emergency. On February 11th, Betsy contacted her massage therapist. She explained that Jean had woken with symptoms that seemed like a cold or the flu. His COVID-19 test was negative, but she still canceled the appointment to be careful. That same day, security cameras recorded her moving through Santa Fe. She visited a grocery store, a pharmacy, and a pet food store. She completed normal errands and then drove back to the house. To anyone who saw her, it may have looked like an ordinary day. But the next morning, her searches became more urgent. Betsy looked for a private medical service in Santa Fe. Phone records showed that she called the service on February 12th and spoke with someone for less than 2 minutes. Later that afternoon, the medical office tried to call her back. Betsy did not answer. Investigators could not know exactly what she was feeling during those final hours. Her searches showed concern, but they could not show how quickly her condition changed. They also could not prove the exact moment she died. What they did reveal was painful. Betsy had recognized that something was wrong. She had looked for answers. She had even reached toward medical help. But the symptoms looked similar to illnesses that millions of people manage at home. The first official timeline placed her death around February 11th. Her phone activity showed that she was still alive on February 12th, forcing investigators to reconsider those early estimates. This was not a simple failure to ask for help. It was a rare disease hiding behind familiar signs. By the time serious breathing trouble appeared, the window to save her may have been very small. Tests would finally give this illness a name, but its source was not found in a pill bottle, a gas pipe, or anything else investigators first suspected. The danger was connected to something far smaller and almost impossible to see. The answer came from medical testing. Betsy Arakawa had died from hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. The name sounded unfamiliar because the illness is rare. It begins when a person is exposed to certain infected rodents or material left behind by them. The virus can enter the air through tiny pieces of dried urine, saliva, or waste. A person may never see the rodent responsible. At first, the illness can feel like the flu. It may cause fever, muscle pain, headaches, dizziness, or stomach problems. These signs are easy to mistake for something less dangerous. Then the illness can suddenly change. Breathing becomes difficult. Fluid can build inside the lungs. A person who seemed sick but stable may become critically ill in a very short time. Betsy's searches now made sense. The dizziness, flu-like feelings, and questions about breathing were not separate problems. They were pieces of the same illness. But one question remained. Where had she encountered it? Health workers examined the Santa Fe property. They found rodent droppings and live traps inside several buildings outside the main house. In the hills around Santa Fe, mice are common. Their presence near a home is not unusual. Yet investigators found no clear sign of rodent activity inside the house where Jean and Betsy lived. The home was well maintained. Officials described its risk as being similar to many other houses in the area. There was no single room, object, or event that could prove when Betsy had been exposed. The threat may have entered her life days or even weeks before she felt sick. It could have happened inside an outbuilding or somewhere else entirely. The evidence could explain how the disease spreads, but not the exact moment it reached her. That uncertainty made the truth even more disturbing. Betsy had not been surrounded by an obvious danger. She had been living in a place that appeared safe. And Jean had not died from the same illness. His test for hantavirus was negative. Which confirmed detail changed the way you understood this case most. The missed medical call, the hidden illness, or the fact that its exact source was never found. Share your thoughts in the comments. Because once investigators turned their attention to Jean, they found a second tragedy unfolding on a different clock. Gene Hackman's pacemaker held a different kind of record. The small device had been tracking his heart. His final reading showed an abnormal rhythm on February 18th. Investigators could not prove the exact hour of his death, but that reading made February 18th the most likely date. Betsy had already been dead for several days. This created the hardest question in the investigation. What happened to Jean during the time between their deaths? No camera recorded those days. No message explained what he saw. The condition of the house could not reveal what he understood. Investigators had to study his health and remain careful about everything they could not prove. Jean was 95 years old. His heart had been failing for years. He had undergone an aortic valve replacement, lived with an irregular heartbeat, and received a pacemaker in 2019. But his heart was only part of the story. The autopsy found that Jean had advanced Alzheimer's disease. His memory and ability to understand the world around him had been badly affected. Betsy had become an important part of his daily care, helping manage the quiet life they shared. Then she was suddenly gone. It is possible that Jean found her. It is also possible that he never understood that she had died. The evidence cannot support either claim with certainty, and turning that unknown period into a dramatic scene would replace truth with imagination. What the evidence does show is painful enough. Jean had likely gone without food for a long period. His body showed signs of prolonged fasting. With Betsy unable to prepare meals, give guidance, or call for help, he may not have been able to care for himself. His official cause of death was severe heart disease, with Alzheimer's disease playing an important role. He had not caught the hantavirus that killed Betsy. Two people had therefore died beneath the same roof from different causes. Yet their deaths were still deeply connected. Betsy's illness removed the person Jean depended on most. His age, failing heart, and damaged memory then left him exposed to dangers that might once have seemed small. Missing a meal, forgetting a phone, or failing to understand why the house had become silent. For decades, audiences had watched Jean play men who noticed everything. Detectives, soldiers, leaders, characters who could sense danger before anyone else. But near the end of his life, the world around him may no longer have made sense. And elsewhere in the house, another life was still waiting for help that would never arrive. The final death inside the house belonged to Zina. She had recently received medical care, and Betsy brought her home from a veterinary hospital on February 9th. The dog was placed inside a crate so she could recover safely. Then Betsy became ill. When deputies entered the house more than 2 weeks later, Zina was still inside the crate in a bathroom closet near where Betsy had fallen. She could not move freely through the home or search for what she needed. A veterinary examination found no sign that hantavirus had killed her. The likely cause was much simpler: dehydration and starvation. That finding answered one question while creating another painful image. Zina had depended on Betsy in much the same way Jean had. Once Betsy could no longer care for them, both became vulnerable for different reasons. The couple's other 2 dogs survived. One was found near Betsy, while another had been moving around the property. Their survival helped confirm that no single poison, gas leak, or infection had swept through the home. Each death followed its own path. Betsy faced a rare illness that became deadly before she received help. Jean had severe heart disease and advanced Alzheimer's. Zina remained trapped inside a space she could not leave. The connection between them was not one shared medical cause. It was the sudden loss of the person holding their daily lives together. That realization moved the investigation beyond the rooms and medical reports. It raised a wider question about how nobody outside the home knew what was happening. Jean and Betsy valued privacy. Santa Fe gave them distance from Hollywood and allowed them to live quietly. Over time, that quiet life became more closed. Friends and workers did not see every part of their routine. There was no single person to blame for the delay. From the outside, the property appeared still and secure. There was no broken window, alarm, or public cry for help. Only silence. By the time maintenance and security workers became concerned, the emergencies inside had already ended. If you value documentaries that protect the truth while treating real people with care, subscribe for more stories told this way. Because the final answer was not hidden inside a mysterious object or secret room. It was hidden inside the painful distance between a peaceful private life and complete isolation. By the end of the investigation, the scene that once looked like a dark Hollywood mystery had a clear explanation. There was no intruder, no secret attack, no deadly gas moving through the rooms. Betsy Arakawa died after a rare virus attacked her lungs. Gene Hackman likely died several days later from severe heart disease, while advanced Alzheimer's left him unable to fully care for himself. Zinna died because she remained trapped without food or water. 3 deaths. 3 different physical causes. But one human connection. Betsy had been the person holding their daily world together. When she suddenly became sick, there was nobody inside the home able to replace what she did. Jean depended on her. Zinna depended on her. And the private life the couple had carefully built gave the outside world few chances to see that something was wrong. The large house had not hidden a crime. It had hidden silence. Jean spent much of his career playing strong men who walked into danger and took control. Away from the screen, age had changed what control meant. His heart was weak. His memory was fading. The actor millions remembered could no longer live like the characters they saw. After the investigation, the family fought to prevent images of Jean and Betsy's bodies from becoming public. They wanted the couple remembered through their lives, not through the rooms where those lives ended. That choice matters. The final days were tragic, but they were not the whole meaning of Gene Hackman's life or his marriage to Betsy. They were a reminder that illness can move quietly, that independence can become isolation, and that even people surrounded by comfort may still be beyond the reach of help. What part of this story stayed with you most? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if it reminded you of someone who may be living alone or struggling in silence, share this documentary and then reach out to them. Investigators entered the home searching for the cause of 3 deaths. What they found was something harder to measure. A life can look peaceful from the outside while, behind a closed door, the person inside may need someone to notice the silence.